So, I heard you guys have been absolutely itching for some more Aquatic Stage, eh? But how the last couple of videos, I mean, I do tend to do like a bit of variety every now and then, but no, you guys really want the Aquatic Stage, and I'm sorry it took a while. But as you guys can see here, I have made quite a bit of progress off camera, as I have been doing. I've been stating this before. Whenever we make like a large bit of progress, I do try and, you know, fine-tune it off camera. Here is one example, the caves, which in the last episode, they're a little bit messy, a little bit scrappy, you know, whereas now they're completely covered in some really nice, like, flora and such, and they're completely functional. They're now working as intended, all nice and tested, so it's looking really, really good. I have changed the terrain up a little bit so that things are just a little bit more, a little bit flatter, but I think I had it just a bit too bumpy beforehand. The the anemone, you know, that thing, is also looking a lot better now, and I've made it so that, I mean, there's still no, like, easy indicator that if you just, you know, walk towards you or float up, so I think I might use some effects later on, but again though, just making the whole area look a bit nicer and making it a little bit less likely for the player to try and come in at this, you know, or exactly, you can't even go in that direction anymore, so you no longer have to worry about getting, you know, hit around or blown about by the jump pads, but again, just another option. And also, I've really changed the terrain up in general around here. In fact, we've got a good angle here. So I've made the, like, after playing with a couple of stamps, a couple of the heals and such, I've ended up making the transition, oh, whoops, okay, the transition from the shallows to the coral forest a little bit more dramatic. So now it's a lot more cliffy, and we've got two ramps you can go down. We've either got the, you know, the big obvious ramp down here, or you can just go up this coral tunnel. And again, I've been testing it a lot, making sure that you actually can walk back up afterwards. There are a couple of areas that you can't really walk back up, such as, we go back to this area I was just at. This one has become like a bit of a unintentional slide. So, you know, why not? Have a bit of fun there. So you kind of fall down. You can't run back up this way, but that's fine though, because there are other options anyway. The terrain doesn't have to be 100%, you know, compatible, but just mostly. And the big coral tunnel for a nest I mentioned before, that was kind of like scrappily placed down there. I've gotten rid of that one over there, put it back over here next to this tunnel, which conveniently, you know, coincidentally, one of you also suggested in the comments to do just this as well. That was a really nice coincidence there. And I've made it, you know, again, like a lot prettier. Now it functions, now looks more like a nest as opposed to just like a random bit of, you know, terrain that we had beforehand. Now, on top of all of that, I've added like a little bit more flora here. I will be adding more flora in general later on. But of course, step by step, gotta take it nice and slow, make sure we don't completely wreck the complexity meter, you know, immediately. That would be the absolute worst. But if I go down here, oh, I've also done a bit of the acts as well. I've done a little bit more acts, a little bit of objectives, so we're really making nice, steady progress. Now, as for the coral forest, I have expanded it. I made it a little bit bigger. I made it a little bit more interesting, because beforehand it was very flat, whereas now I've just given it, you know, again, a little bit more variation. Got a bit of the whole, you know, like a really fine, soft sand idea that's, you know, kind of like being blown by the waves. And let's just go ahead and go back into edit mode. And as you can see here, yeah, the whole area is just generally a lot larger. I think beforehand we only had like about, I don't know how to indicate it. It was just, let's just say it was a lot smaller overall. So we've now had this bit come out a little bit more. I've got rid of these spice geysers because it just seemed really out of place in the end. I will add it back in, but I'll add it back in later. We've also got a bit of a ramp thing going up here, which I'm just saying, it's going to be one of many Easter eggs, so I'm not doing that on camera, you have to figure that one out yourselves. But yeah, so that is the latest progress, and that is why things did take a bit of a while for that. I do apologise. But like I said though, I'm really trying to fine-tune things off camera, and I'm really trying to do a lot of testing. Any of you who had played my old Valley of the Dragon series back in the day, you will know I never tested it, and it was terrible. So I'm really trying to make sure it goes well this time. I'm like, really trying to put more care into it this time. So, with the good old, you know, every video catch up out of the way, it is time, guys. It is time to finally do the coral forest, and what I'm going to do, first things first, is nuke the atmosphere. That way we can actually see things a little bit clearer, because it was really foggy. Now for the coral forest. Been having a kind of a bit of a mixture of ideas here. I'm not really sure how exactly I'm going to approach this, but I wanted to start it on camera, that way you guys can see the progress as well, or the process. Now my first idea for the coral forest was something similar from Subnautica, where it's like very open, very colourful, but then I'd also been recommended something from Monster Hunter, the Coral Highlands, which I have to say are absolutely stunning. Now I probably can't make that in Spore, because at the end of the day, Spore just is not as pretty, it's not as complicated or detailed, and especially collision. Collision will be a big deal, and the camera, the camera. So I can't make it as pretty as the Monster Hunter World Coral Highlands, but I definitely can take some inspiration. So the first thing that I think we're going to want to add would probably have to be some plateaus, or just like, I'm not sure like the proper technical words for all of these, but I do see like a lot of coral that have like very flat surfaces and they got multiple levels, multiple steps. So I'm thinking if we get like some kind of rock, is there any rocks that have like a really flat head? I guess the gear rock kind of does, but I really don't want that. These do actually, the plump ones. Is that the best that we have? The tentacle stack as well. It's got like a bit of a flat surface, plump formation, plump stack. I think sandstone formation. That's actually very promising there. Okay, so let's see how all these look then. So that could actually be good for completely different reasons. Oh, I do like that. Okay, plateau side. I'm going to keep that one then. That is the plump stack. We've got the tentacle stack, which, okay, that's again another like high potential. Right, okay then. Not quite for what I want to use right now, but it definitely could work out later on. That's another decent one. Okay, these are all pretty decent. Those two are very similar, so I'm going to get rid of the pump formation for now, because I do want to avoid using too many unique parts, because over the course of the adventure, it's just going to, you know, increase the complexity a little bit too quickly, and I am trying to manage it, I'm trying to budget it. But for the time being, we have those three. Now that does remind me actually, we also have some of your creations that you guys have been submitting. One of them was a building. Here we go, the leveled coral rock small by Pulsartron. We've also got the coral rock here by Velosa Boy. And another coral rock there. Actually, are them two the same thing? I think they are. That's fine, I'll just have the one each then. So these two should also be some options. Now they are like very, very brightly coloured. They do differ a lot from the rest of the environment. But what I can just do then is add like a ton of foliage and flora on top of it, which is what I plan on doing anyway. So it won't be too bad for sure. Now, the big question is, how am I going to do this? I do want the coral forest to be, well, a forest. I want it to be, I do want it to be very detailed. I'm not sure if I can get away with that, because again, complexity is a thing. But I am hoping that we can get away with quite a bit anyway. Now, it won't all necessarily be, you know, you can't necessarily walk on all of it. But I'm going to try allow you to walk on some of it. So we're going to have some like big chunks here and there. Got to remember to make the sizes vary as well. That way things don't look too, you know, copy-paste. So we've got a couple there. We'll have one more over... Let me see. Now here's an interesting thing actually. I have this area here which naturally slopes up. Not intended. I'm debating if maybe I want to keep that for something. Could be like another Easter egg location. That being said, I do plan on adding a lot of Easter eggs in here. So for those of you who are hoping that there's going to be like a couple of surprises, that you're hoping, you know, not everything's going to be in the videos, don't you worry, there will be a lot of surprises for you. I currently have, assuming I can implement them, I currently have 11 Easter eggs planned. And let me just say, one of them is going to be very tricky to figure out, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how people do that. Oh, that's really cool. So this one actually has a bit of a hole in it, so could my creature actually navigate through that hole? Oh god, that initial bit of lag, there we go. Right, could you? Oh no, you cannot. Some creatures or some buildings you can navigate through, but sometimes they're just a little bit incompatible. This one's an incompatible one. That's okay then, that's fine. They don't all have to be, you know, traversable, but it'd be nice to have like the occasional one. But still though, that, you know, regardless of that, that's a very, very cool looking prop regardless. So I'm going to still use that. Have another one over here. A much big one perhaps. In fact, this one can even be slightly embedded into the ground. So again, like I said, I really don't want these buildings looking too out of place. I don't want them looking, you know, just slapped on. So that is our beginning. It's a bit of a rough beginning, but it's a beginning nonetheless. Now, are there any trees, like any kind of corally type of trees? That one kind of works. What else can we get? That's a very wild looking one down there as well. So, like I said, I'm really looking at that coral highlands from Monster Hunter World as a reference. So I'm trying to find like some very tall, very wide plants with like very small leaves. Ones are like a little bit more, you know, bushy looking, but that aren't obviously trees, you know, like the gin one here. The gin one's like one of my favourites from the land, but it wouldn't be very good for here. That's a Cratoris one there actually is beautiful for like an underwater environment. That was really nice. The Lingulas here as well, and the Lopalip. So these ones I could just combine into other props, and some of them do look obviously like trees. I can just, you know, do a bit of like combination, a bit of hiding, a bit of obscuring, and make it look like coral. Plus, I want to be colourful. I do want this area to be very colourful. That's going to be an absolutely key thing. I think I will leave it at just that for now. Yep, okay. And how can I put these in? Now, I know that for these areas here, the original author did also give a demonstration as to how these are meant to look. In fact, let me show that to you guys now. Alright then, so here's a really cool demonstration by Pulsartron, the creator of the big stacked coral rocks. And this is what they had in mind. So, I love it. I think it's really, really cool. It doesn't quite fit to what I have in mind for my adventure, but it's a good thing to take some inspiration from, and how he's used all of his different plant props and, you know, kind of like merged it into the bigger one itself. So, you know, that kind of like combining effect. There was also another idea entirely by Clarak, who's been making a lot of the really cool, you know, like these type of coral props down here, like this one here. And she had another idea to go with it, which I'm really tempted to try out now. Now, first things first, I am going to need a pipe rock she described. Let me see if I can find out quickly. I think it's one of the crab ones. It is not. Aha, that one. Right. So it's going to create like a bit of an interesting bridge. Now, first things first, where do I want to put that bridge? I could just put it here. I mean, it's a little bit cheesy to have the bridge, you know, or have the gateway or whatever you want to call it, be like the entrance point to another biome. I think that's a little bit cheesy, but at the same time though, it's not really the worst idea, is it? I think it would be quite nice to have, you know, some like indication. So I think I will be doing just that then. Let me find the prop. Oh, there it is. And the way she had it was... Actually, come to think of it, if I do it the way I'm thinking, it's probably going to be really big. Actually, yeah, let's just try it. Let's just see what happens. So, we've got the one big rock there. Right about there, we're going to have one large coral thing. Right there. This is going to take quite a bit of, probably a little bit of trial and error here. In fact, I think like what we've been doing for the last couple of episodes, I will show you guys at the rough version. And I'll go ahead and, you know, do it properly off camera. That being said though, I don't want to do the entirety of the coral forest off camera either. I'm going to think about how to approach that because I would love for you guys to see the whole process. But at the same time though, the whole process will take a very, very long time. So I'm wondering, I do want to stream it, but there's always that possibility of getting distracted because I really like chatting during streams. So I'd have a really hard time focusing. Right. So this is the way she had it in mind. We've got one rock coming out like that. I have another one off to the other side, which will meet it like this. Now, if I was to do this repeatedly in other areas as well, I could also make the creature actually walk among these. You know, it could just be like an actual functional bridge, if you will. So something like that. And then, of course, have like all the other various props and such on top of it. Such as, if I can find some more rocks, let's get this. Oh, that's a bit of a funny looking one. No, I don't want that one. Let's try this. It's interesting. I actually quite like that. It's not the way she's got it done, but I do like that as a, you know, just as an option. And of course, have a couple of more of these decorating the areas, that way they're not purely just on the sides, but, you know, up and around as well, like this. I'll probably be using this particular piece a lot, because I just really like, the multiple layers, I really like how bright and colourful it is, and I especially like how the colour is not flat, which is a major issue with Spore, is that a lot of the times the colours are really flat, whereas this one is quite nice and textured, which is going to immediately, you know, make me want to use it more. So we got that going there. If I want to do a little bit more like her design and then move on, we'll have a couple of these. So one will be like there, somewhat buried into the ground. Another one over here, but much larger. Make sure it's not just randomly protruding through the coral. That is another thing I am trying to avoid here, is clipping, which is another thing I really didn't care about when I was younger, was clipping. I'm trying to, you know, add a little bit more care to it this time round. So you see what we're kind of going for here. Like, this is one idea. This is one approach that she came up for me. So again, Claric, thank you very much. And Pulsartron as well, thank you as well for the demonstration about these parts. I'll be utilising that in some way as well. And may as well have, like what she's done as well, may as well have like a nice big coral tube in here too. Let's quickly do that. And I think I have it be... Come on. That way, there we go. I keep on trying to click on the wheel and I'm just missing it just barely. Right, something like that. This is very, very similar to how she's had in mind, just nowhere near as pretty looking. But I'll fix that. How big is this actually? Not that big actually, that's a pretty reasonable size. Okay, I like that. I do like that indeed. We can traverse through that quite nicely. We can go back up as well. Gotta make sure that it's actually possible to walk through all these things. Oh, that's really neat. I actually didn't notice that. The fact that I knew that all these animating parts on the buildings were going to animate. I did not know it was going to do the effects as well. That really saves me a lot of work later on. The confetti is a little bit out of touch, but that's fine now. I'm actually really okay with that. It's at the end of the day, guys, it's Spore. We're not making like some realistic, you know, alien documentary thing. Nah, we're just playing Spore. So I'm okay with like a little bit of silliness here and there. And I really like the effects overall. So, that is one concept. Now, I still really want to try and hammer out that Monster Hunter idea. I also want there to be like a lot of very, very tall structures. And that, I don't think I've actually had any of those submitted, so I may have to make a bunch myself. Let's go ahead and quickly check. Probably going to be creatures. A lot of people have been making these in the creature editor. And I do also need to add a bunch more submissions. So if you guys aren't seeing creations in here yet, don't worry. I am still accepting submissions and I need to go ahead and, you know, actually find them and download them. Right. Okay, yeah, so I don't think we've got any to fulfill that niche just yet. But that's okay, that's absolutely okay. We'll just go ahead and make do with what we have currently. As always, we can polish everything later on. We're still doing like the general rough things. We're kind of like doing the rough biomes, the rough objectives and such. I say rough. I mean, a little bit more than I intended, but hey, it still works. Still doing it step by step. And I also need to remember to do some smaller props as well. Not everything needs to be big and gargantuan. We do want some smaller areas here and there as well. That one is a little bit off to the side, but actually, oh, whoops. I don't really mind that so much. I'll just have to add some parts to like transition it later on. And like that, excellent, cool. Good unflush on the ground as well. And let's try another part. Definitely want to have that variety. Definitely don't want to stick to just using the same parts over and over. This is a part I've been really excited to use. I don't know why, but I just really, really like it. This I'm pretty sure is by Sakiara, from when she made her own Aquatic Stage a long time ago. Well, it wasn't really an Aquatic Stage, it was more like just an underwater adventure. But still though, like, you get what I'm saying here. And actually, I think this will be like a really good part to transition between, you know, the building props and the creature props. I think this will be like a really nice transition. Because this coral area, or coral bush, would you say? This is also made in a building editor as well, but as you can see though, it's just got that little bit extra texture. In fact, this does remind me, guys. Now, I am doing all of this in not so ideal graphics. I mean, my graphics are set to maximum, as you can see here. But GA is notorious for having, you know, like kind of, what's the word? Making everything low resolution. Like you can see here, the buildings are very muddied. There actually is a way of overcoming that, which I'll show with you in just a moment. But the reason why I'm doing things low res is that way I get an idea for how it looks on most computers, and not just how it looks on mine, you know? So let's go ahead then and add a couple of more parts like that, make that one a lot smaller as well. And I'll just decorate the entire area. And let me quickly show you guys the command. So keep an eye on that building. Do Control-Shift-C to bring up the cheat dialog. And we want to do high res texture. Oh, that's in capital letters. High res texture level space high. Apparently it's going to be fully lowercase. I didn't know that. But you can see the difference there. So it does make quite a nice difference, especially, like, it really makes a lot of things really pop out a lot more. But, as I said though, like, especially here, this looks a lot better now. It's got much more grain, much more texture. But, this is also a thing that I cannot expect, I cannot assume everyone's going to do this. Which is why I'm not doing it for myself yet. You know, gotta make sure it looks good on potatoes as well as toasters. So another thing I do want while I'm doing all this, we got like the one random spike there. The terrain just kind of like bobbing upwards. I do want a little bit more of that here and there. Not very much. I distinctly want these to be very small. But I would like, there you go, just like a little bit of again, just for the ground to not be entirely flat. That is, you know, a bit of a goal here. I have another one over here. That way it kind of segments the areas as well. Maybe it can segment it for nests and such. Or just, you know, whatever. Maybe caves. Speaking of which, I will be adding more caves and nests around here as well. But as always, step by step. In fact, that's a really bad place for it, because that's right where the ramp is. Okay then. So we've got the one here. In fact, maybe I could just do that again. Just duplicate that. Yeah, that works. That works quite nicely. We'll remove that entirely. Have that over here, and then maybe have like one more smaller one. In fact, oh, just like a little bit of a spike. I do not mind that either. Just like the occasional little spiky bit. Have one there, have one there. Actually, maybe I can make that a little bit larger, kind of embed it into the structure there. That works. Again, make it all pretty later. Make it very, very pretty later on. So that's a bit of an idea. Now, it's definitely not looking like a forest yet. Something tells me I'm gonna need to make a lot more props. But it's the idea. Yeah, right guys, I think that's gonna be the plan then. What I might do is make a couple more props specifically for this, as I really have like that one particular prop in mind that I'm just currently lacking, and I think it's gonna really add a lot to this. So, I think, how long has it been? Yep, I think I'll wrap it up here then, friends. But don't you worry, more coming very, very soon. If you have ideas, if you have suggestions, if you have questions as to why I'm doing certain things the way I am, please feel free to ask, comment down below, and I'll happily answer. In fact, before we head off, let's just have a quick little look and just see how things are actually looking so far. Let's make our way down. In fact, we'll go this way this time. Last time we went that way, I think. We'll go down the coral tube way, or at least, you know, just walk right past it. And that's what we have so far. So to the actual creature, it's a pretty wide looking area. Although I definitely think, yeah, I have made the props a little bit too large. So that's why testing is very important. That's why I'm kind of taking my time here and fine tuning a lot of things later on. So that, for instance, is definitely far too large. Now I know, now I'll fix it. I do love the dancing buildings. So yeah, okay, it's looking very, very sparse. But areas like here with the big, these big coral plateaus, these just look utterly amazing and really like tie what I want together. So basically we just need tons more of these. Alright then guys, like I said, thank you very, very much for watching. I'll wrap it up here so I can get working on the next episode immediately. I know you guys have been really hungry for more and I want to do more for you. So yeah, I'll catch you all next time. Thank you very much and cheers.